Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at NECA's new Ultimate Goliath, part of their Gargoyles action figure line, which is not exactly based on the cartoon, but it's based on the cartoon and the comic, I guess, with new inspiration, because the designs aren't exactly the same. So we're not going to actually look at cartoon accuracy all that much, but it is going to be used as reference material, because obviously that's what most people are going to be familiar with. So I'll be talking about some things in comparison to the cartoons, but these figures are definitely, at least as far as we can see so far, not directly based on that, and we'll go over a few of those things as we talk about it. But obviously this is a big deal for NECA to get this license. There's been very few action figures or collectibles really of Gargoyles in general, especially in anything close to recent history, just that one line ages ago. And this is a big deal for Gargoyles fans. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about, let's say, 18.5 centimeters, which makes him pretty close to, we'll say 7¼ inches, and that does have his legs like this, which is pretty much how he was always drawn. Generally speaking, when an animal, because humans don't have this, the animals have the digitigrade legs with the extra bends and things where they stand on their toes mostly and the legs go back. You mostly have the thighs going straight down, and then you get the bend backwards of the center axis. So that's how I have him. Of course, you can make him a lot taller if you straighten his legs out, but this is generally how you would want him to be. If that looks a little bit weird to you based on what you remember in the cartoons, most of the time in like a neutral stance, this was the case. His legs on this figure are, his lower legs are very long. I shouldn't say very long. They're a little bit longer than you might expect, and the feet are kind of a different design, so that's why it looks a little bit different than what you might be remembering. But this is going to get you closest to a neutral stance based on the cartoon, and like I said, that's mostly what people are going to be remembering, and so that's what we're going to go with. So anyway, before we get into the rest of the review, we have to talk about today's sponsor spot. And the sponsor for today's video is Into the AM. Again, it's the t-shirt people. I love this company and they want to keep doing sponsor spots, and I want to keep wearing their clothes, so we're going to keep doing it. They are by far my favorite graphic t-shirt company that I've ever come across. It's the only thing I wear anymore. And the good thing is, by me doing these sponsor spots, you guys get a discount. There's a link in the description. If you click that and buy stuff, you're going to get a discount. Other cool thing about that is their prices, at full price, their clothes are totally worth it. Like, hands down, no doubt about it. But you do get the discount. And on top of that, they do have bundle deals. You can get a bundle deal on the graphic tees. You can get a bundle deal on the plain tees. They sell other stuff too, hoodies, joggers, all kinds of different things. Check that out. They do have the subscription service where if you want to save even more money, you can sign up for that. You don't get to pick out your shirts, but you do save money, so that's kind of like a trade-off there. But yeah, these shirts are awesome. I love the way they fit. They're super colorful. They're super fun. There's all kinds of different styles. If you're into like skulls and stuff, they have a bunch of that too. I have a few of those, but I prefer the more like comic anime inspired stuff, because I don't like just wearing the same stuff everyone else is wearing, and so I like having something that's a little creative, colorful thing, but not just another Marvel or DC thing. That's why I like these. I love these shirts. I actually do, like, this isn't just a sponsor thing that I have to say. I actually do get compliments on these shirts all the time. Like, it's a thing that happens. So if you're looking for some attention out in the wild, maybe something like this might help you if you're into wearing graphic tees. I don't know. But they are awesome clothes, great materials, great printing, great fit. Everything's awesome about them. I love them. I really do. Wear them all the time. So that's why I'm going to keep doing the sponsor spots. You guys keep telling me you like the clothes too, so I'm happy to keep doing the spots. Everybody wins, right? Okay, so check it out. Link in the description, Into the AM. Plenty of good clothes there. Have fun. If you do get stuff, let me know in the comment section below which ones you're going to order. And now we also have to do a question of the day, because we can't not do that. So the question of today, very simple, is which of the Gargoyles is your favorite? I am partial to Goliath, of course, but Demona is very nice as well for a variety of reasons. So you guys let me know in the comment section below which of the Gargoyles is your favorite. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the aesthetic on this guy. There are a couple things worth noting. He's covered in paint, so that's a very, very good thing. There is shading throughout the entire figure. Lovely. The wings, very nice sculpt. As you can see, they're textured. We don't have just plain smooth wings like you would have seen in the cartoon. And the texturing, the black part in here does have like a very dark blue on it, which just gives it a little bit of life, and that's cool. The wings themselves, the purple parts, it's a darker purple than the rest of the figure, which is a little bit of a strange choice. It's a stark contrast. You can even see on the plastic used to hold the wings in, that matches the figure pretty well. But then the painted part, the fingers, the arms of the wings are very dark, so I'm not sure what happened there. It's definitely a little strange. However, I do suspect we're going to be getting some repaints of this guy outside of Thalog. I'm pretty sure we're going to see more of Goliath, probably more of all the gargoyles in the future. We'll talk about that in just a minute. So the wings are nicely sculpted. That's pretty cool. The overall body is sculpted very well. It's very, very ripped looking. Like he's got like less than 0% body fat. So that's a little bit of a strange choice to go with, I would say, with Goliath, especially since he was drawn very thick in the cartoon. This obviously works. He's very muscular looking. It's got a very superhero vibe to it. I do believe it is all 100% new parts. I can't imagine any of these parts have been reused from anything else. So that's very cool. The sculpt work is good. There are a few tiny weird things that I don't quite understand why they did. Like, for instance, this is obviously a very small thing, but the way the pecs are sculpted with this lower part down here smaller than the upper part that would tuck in by the bicep, that's not really how pecs work. If anything, you would have a line in the middle and the bottom part would still be connected over this way. You're never going to get the bottom part that just like wraps in down there and then this part sticking over, and it doesn't make sense for any part of the articulation because this part still would get in the way of the bicep. So I'll just do a quick Photoshop so you can see the difference that would make, especially since Goliath had like the biggest chest ever. It seems odd that they would give him this narrower bit down here at the bottom. Again, that's a tiny little thing, but it might be something people are noticing. I'm hearing a lot of comments about the anatomy on this guy. That's something that stood out to me. Another thing that stands out is his face is very, I don't want to say gaunt, but it's very, there's like zero anything on there but bone. And it makes his chin look narrow, even though he's got a very big chin. This part over here doesn't have any meat in it, and the chin itself is very pointy, and I guess that they're going for like that. The thing with gargoyles, and I had the same problem when I was sculpting them for my customs, which were done years ago, and we're not going to compare them because it's not what NECA was going for, and it's a custom, and it's all different. There's no point in comparing. Anyway, it's hard to get the 2D look from the gargoyles in like the cartoon, for instance, because in every angle they're cheating. They're not 3D, so they're cheating to make things look like they want at various angles, and it's hard to make that work in 3D. So I'm guessing NECA was going for the real sharp features, but I think what some people are picking up on is like the eyes are really sunken in. He's got very thin skin on his face and no meat, no fat, no nothing. So it gives him kind of a gaunt look. And I think that might be what people are picking up on. And of course, that's just a stylistic choice that NECA chose to go with. So that's fine. That's up to them. I don't think it's good or bad. It is just what it is. But I think that's what people might be picking up on. But yeah, otherwise, like the sculpt work, the legs, for instance, the thighs, that's really well done. Very good anatomy there. Like the anatomy's good, other than that weird thing with the pecs. It's all very well done. Very nicely sculpted all the way through the legs. The feet are very nicely detailed. The wings, like I said. The hair is good. It's very well sculpted. It looks like hair, so that's nice. Both of the heads on mine do have a chunk missing out of the back, though, so that kind of blows. But it's soft enough that it's not going to totally be a problem with the wings. We'll talk about the wings more with the articulation. The tail is just a smooth, bendy tail. Is it as bendy as it could be? No, but it does provide stable support for the figure if you want that, which you probably do. And so that's a good thing. That's fine. I think there's no problem there. But we do lose our wire at about this point right here, so you're not going to be curling the tip at all. And that's usually the case with a bendy tail, so that's fine. But to go back to the painting a little bit, since I mentioned it on the wings, it looks fantastic on the loincloth. The shading on there is just about as good as you could do. It's very well done. And the shading on the body is mostly really good, but I have two problems. Well, I guess three, technically. And this is going to be the case with most mass-produced figures, so I'm not really killing the figure for it. And you're going to have a different experience. But I have a spot here where there's just no paint on the forearm at the end, so it looks like was wearing a watch before he went out in the sun. And I have a lot of spots where it's just scratched off. You can see that, so that kind of blows. But then the thing that really bugs me, and again, this is going to be from figure to figure, is there are, like, the shading that should be on the chest, which is super subtle. It's super subtle, except there's three very distinct dots, which would be at the end of, like, the airbrush would be held there or started there and then moved over, or maybe they went across. Either way, I have 3 dots on his chest, and that's definitely less than ideal, especially considering the shading everywhere else. Like, if you look at the legs, oh, it's gorgeous. It's phenomenal. There's a wash type of shading on the feet and hands as far as I can tell, and then the airbrush shading everywhere else. And it looks really, really good in most cases, but I do have those spots here, which is definitely a detraction for me. hopefully you guys don't have those things. But all in all, the figure is gorgeous. It looks like you would expect a NECA figure to look. It's a great take on Goliath. It's a more realistic, like very like veiny, muscular look rather than the more smooth looking styles of the cartoon. So again, that's just a style choice, and that's fine. So I mean, it comes down to what you like or what you don't like as far as whether you should get it or not based on these things, but I can't fault NECA for making it their style, and they did a really good job. Also, yeah, we have the claws on the fingers and toes, which is not something from the cartoon. They just had pointy fingers and toes, so that's another thing that people might be mentioning or noticing. I don't know, I haven't looked at a ton of comments on this guy, but that is a thing. Like, there are differences from this figure to the cartoon, and for all we know, they're going to make alternate hands and feet and things like that to reissue this guy. NECA's good at reissuing things in a way that people want them. That's fine with me. If we want to get this version and then another version that's a little more cartoon accurate, something like that would be cool. And then we can go ahead and talk about the wings also as part of the aesthetic. This is going to be a long video probably. These wings look gorgeous, and they're nice lightweight plastic. There's no problem there, but these are the only wings we get. And I don't think it was an oversight that we only got the fully extended wings. I do believe that we will see reissues of this guy with wings that are just closed up and like just the pointy kind that stand up and are neutral. Then we'll probably also get, if I'm guessing though, less likely the ones that wrap around like the cloak, but definitely we'll see some wings that are folded down, and maybe even some wings that are even more outstretched with this part going up. But I don't think that was an oversight. I think it was foresight for them to have reissues with different sets of wings. Because as others have mentioned, I definitely have heard this. These guys take up a ton of shelf space with their wings, and you can't really do much with them. We'll talk about that with the articulation. They look gorgeous, but I do think we will be getting alternate wings in the future. And if I knew what I was talking about, I would say that we're not going to see a reissue with alternate wings and these again. I would bet each issue comes with its own set of wings, and we'll see how that goes. I could be wrong completely. It's just a hunch, but that's my guess. So anyway, the aesthetic on this guy is phenomenal despite a few issues here and there, so I'm going to leave it at a 9 out of 10 for the aesthetic. Paint everywhere is great. Sculpt is great. You know, like this, I don't really care personally about this, but that is something that affects how big his chest looks, the fact that his pecs themselves are smaller than they could be, and then just the paint issues. That's really about it. So 9 out of 10 for the aesthetic. As far as accessories go, we do come with the normal head, then we come with the angry head with the wide eyes and the open mouth, and that is gorgeous, very well done. We have the open hands that come on in the package. Then we get 1 gripping hand and 2 fist hands, all very nicely sculpted. We do get his book, which is a book with some scribbles in it. You can't make anything out. And then we get a pepper. I vaguely remember the pepper. It's been quite a while since I watched the show. But yeah, there's a pepper and a book and then some alternate parts. And that's about it. So again, I do suspect we'll see some future releases with some different accessories and things like that. But that's a decent spread of accessories. I'll go 8 out of 10. Hands, head, couple of things to hold. I think that's fine. I'm sure we're going to see like a stone painted version. And I know we're going to see Thalog. So yeah, we're definitely going to get reissues of these guys. There's no way NECA is not planning on doing regular and stone versions of each figure. There's no way. And it doesn't really make sense to do stone for an action figure, but that's gotta happen, I'm thinking. Okay, so let's talk about the articulation. The head is on a double ball peg, though the neck is quite large and very, very far forward. You're gonna have some trouble getting his head to go like straight up. He tends to want to look down, especially in the package, like fresh out of the package. What I did was, let me see if I can pop this off conveniently here. That's what she said. If you look, we have a giant ball peg, which is like the best way to do it. Big ball peg in the neck, smaller ball peg at the top, that's fine. The top ball peg is just for adjustments. The big ball peg in the bottom is for the main bulk of posing. However, you can see the way they have the socket, there is room in there for this to lean back, but the plastic on the top, I actually trimmed away just a little bit of that. You can kind of see, not where that cutout is, just at the top. I trimmed just a touch to get this to lean back a little bit more, and it helped. It definitely helped. It's very hard to get his head in a more neutral looking pose without doing that. And it's just a tiny shaving of some PVC, so it's super easy. Do it at your own risk, of course, but the double ball peg is the way to go. And he can look around well, though it is a little bit gappy. I think, you know, it could have been better, but if you pose him and then look from the angle you want to pose it from, or look at it from, pose it for that angle, you're going to be fine. If you pose it and then try to find gaps, yeah, you'll find them, but obviously, it's articulation. And the hair is soft enough to let it flex, so I like that. I like the double ball peg, obviously. That's always the best way to do it. And they did a pretty good job with it. It looked like the neck was, or the head was seated a little bit lower in a lot of the promo images, but it also looks to me like a lot of the images were taken at angles, and so it's probably just posed for that. So yeah, maybe the head sits a little bit high in a completely neutral pose, because Goliath had very, like a short neck, big shoulders, big chest, that kind of thing. But I'm pretty sure you can just get it to pose how you want to, or pose it how you want to and get it to look the way you want based on the angle you look at it. So I think that'll be okay for most people. Like that right there is the height of neck that you would expect to see pretty close based on the cartoon. Okay, so double ball peg's good there. For the shoulders, it's your standard ball hinge shoulder, but very limited range. I'm not going to raise that more than that. Not going to get it anywhere near horizontal without really stressing it and potentially scratching the paint. So I'm not going to do it. It's clearly not going to do it easily at all. So that's very limiting there. They go down fairly far, like basically all the way. So that's good. You do get your rotation. I will say the joint itself doesn't feel like a problem. It's just the PVC parts that are, bumping against each other, the various muscle groups and things. So it doesn't feel like it wants to rotate any farther forward than that, but I guess that's okay. He probably doesn't need to raise his arms any higher than that. And you can definitely force it. It is softer plastic. It's just PVC. So you can force it, but I definitely am not going to recommend you force the joints to go. They aren't stuck or anything. It's just the plastic on the outside touching. Bicep swivel is fine, of course. The double jointed elbows work very nicely. In fact, I mentioned the joints working well a second ago. I don't have a single stuck, or didn't have a single stuck joint or anything like that. No loose joints, no stuck joints on any part of this guy. So I'm very pleased with that. I don't know if that's like an intentional QC upgrade, or if it's just something they're doing across the board, or if it's just sheer luck, but I have had zero joint issues with any parts of this guy. Wrists are on a swivel and a hinge, by the way. The torso is a double ball peg as far as I can tell. I haven't pulled it apart because I'm scared to. The lower torso does not move. It is all connected, and if you lift up his skirt, you can kind of see in there a little bit that there's definitely no place to move anything. And we'll get to lifting up the skirt in just a second, and we'll get to the wings later. So the double ball peg here, it is quite gappy. I'm not sure why they made that much of a gap. The Predators have really good range typically without that much of a gap, so that's a little strange, but he does lean forward quite nicely. He hunches pretty far forward. Leaning back is less, but it does work, but then you do see that gap, and you can kind of adjust it on that second ball peg. But then he's leaning a little bit less back, but you do get less of a gap, so that's a reasonable trade-off. Side to side works really well. There's no stiffness in here. It could be tighter. There are definitely some spots that are loose, like right there you can see he wants to keep flopping back. So yeah, be aware of some of that. That's going to be kind of the case with PVC and heavy parts, but you're going to be able to pose him pretty well. And especially given the fact that he's not going to be the most acrobatically dynamic figure, it should be fine. I think you'll be okay. Now, the skirt is soft, and it does not have a bottom piece. And that's something that I had to deal with when I was making my own customs of this guy. Do you put something down there, or do you just give him skin-colored area in his special place? And they just left it all skin-colored. There's no brown down there, but they did not sculpt anything, so don't be too afraid to check out the articulation. It's okay. And then you do get just your ball sockets. However, these are probably the best ball sockets, but there is one thing that concerns me. The best ball sockets NECA has done. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see that. I think you can, maybe. Yeah, you can. There's paint on that ball. So they painted the socket itself. And it's nice and stiff right now. Poor choice of words for what we're talking about, but it's nice and stiff. And I don't have any trouble with the joints going side to side, forward and back. There's some squeaking, but that's not the bad kind of squeaking. However, there is paint in there, and that could make it loose once that paint starts to chip away and fall off. So I don't know, but as of right now, it's a good ball socket, and it works well. There is a thigh swivel, so that's good. No problems there. Yeah, I mean, it's not the most range, but it should be enough. Like, you can bring the leg up pretty far forward, and you can bring it back. So, yeah, I think you'll be okay. These ball sockets work just fine. There's a little bit of paint transfer on here. Good luck with that. Hopefully you don't have any. Okay, for the knees, it's our standard single joint that swivels. So you can straighten the legs out if you want to, though he almost never stands like that. I mean, like occasionally, but almost never. And you do get rotation in there, but you're not going to really use that too much. They do still have the big meat flap on the knee like they have done in the past. And I would prefer that they have a little bit less of a flap. It's not bad on this guy, especially from the front. You're not going to notice it too much. But I just don't think it needs to be as much of a flap. I think it could just be kind of smoothed out just a little bit more. Again, that's not like a big deal. That's just me commenting on what I would comment on if I was like being consulted. I'd say maybe smooth out your meat flaps. That's all. All right, so for the ankles, it's a standard ankle hinge like you would expect. So it goes forward and back, really good range, and you get your ankle rocker out of there. So that's very helpful in posing his feet. And then the toe hinge is also a standard ankle hinge. So you get that hinge, and then you also get another ankle rocker. They couldn't have done the feet better in terms of articulation. It works nicely. I don't have any loose joints down there. It is semi-ratcheted, as all joints are to some extent, and so you get a little bit of a float in between some of the ratchets, but it's fine. I didn't have any issues with him standing or anything, especially considering that we do have his tail. Now it does peg in with a straight peg, so you can rotate it technically, and then you get that hinge, but there's basically nothing to do with it because the loincloth is cut around it properly so that it looks good and you don't see where his butt would be. And technically, what are you going to do bringing the tail out to the side? I guess you can do that, but the loincloth is in the way, so I wouldn't really try it. And then the hinge on here does work, and you can just like make it stick out if you want to. But again, I don't know how much you're actually going to try to get out of the tail, but you do have the options, and it is fairly well bendy, so that's good. Now the last thing we need to talk about for the articulation is the wings, and so we're going to do this, and I'll show you. Hopefully I can show you. It's going to sound terrible, by the way. That's the plastic it's made out of. Don't worry, it should be fine. But they do have them pegged in fairly deep into the body, and then they have a groove cut out here for the wings to open up. So rotating the wings is not really a thing you're going to be able to do very effectively without popping the wings out. It'll pop them out because of that notch that's cut in there. So it's basically, they're made to just go in there and stay in one position. I know the promo images showed the wings up and down and different things, but it's really not made for it. You're going to peg the wings in, fold them over to be straight out to the side, and that's where it's meant to stay. It's not really sculpted for you to rotate them. So they are going to just sit there and kind of sit in that groove as best as they can. And I guess that's fine. They're not, like I said, they're not really sculpted for, like the wings themselves are not really sculpted for much versatility anyway. So I think that's okay. But they are not really meant, I mean, based on how it's sculpted and how it's designed, not really meant for much posability. Yeah, you can do this if you want to, fold them back a little, but then the hair gets in the way because they didn't leave any extra room. But that's going to be it, like fold them back a little and that's it. You can rotate them then, I guess, but that's not really something you would probably want to do. Once they're, here, this is a good example. You can see that notch there. Once you fold them down flat, you're not rotating them. Not without prying them out of the socket by their own plastic, so a little bit limitation in the wings, but I guess that's reasonable, and it's probably better to have the wings in there solid than to be like overly engineered to be posable and then be too floppy. So I'm okay with that. So I'm going to give this guy a final verdict for articulation. An overall 9 out of 10. I think they did a pretty damn good job. It could be better, sure, but I think 9 is a fair score for this guy. I can't think of anything that's like bad. No, nothing's really bad on this. And a few things could just be a little bit better. So 9 out of 10 for articulation's fair. And now it's time for the final verdict. This far into the review, I know it's a long one, but this is kind of a big deal. A momentous event for action figure collectors. So my final verdict on this guy is, being that it's their first go at the Gargoyles, I do suspect we'll see some kind of improvement just from, you know, hey, we did the wings this way one time, maybe we can make them a little better. That kind of iterative improvement from release to release, that kind of thing. Just like with Casey Jones, we saw 2 different sets of elbows as they went on to the one variant. So I think we'll see that kind of thing to maybe address a few of these small issues, but as far as firing on all cylinders, NECA really hit their stride with this figure. Like, it's really good. They nailed it, and it's not just because I'm a big Gargoyles fan. You guys know I don't just gush over things I like, or every Master Chief figure would be great. Every Ryu or every Akuma figure would be great, and that's not what I do. And that's why NECA likes to send me review samples. So that's the thing I like about NECA too, is they're happy to have my reviews be as honest as I can make them. So yeah, anyway, it's a great release. It's definitely a contender for being on the top 10 list. It's really well executed, and I'm very pleased with it. And now you guys have all the information I could possibly manage to give you to make your buying decision. And I definitely would recommend it. So I'm going to give this guy a final verdict of 9 out of 10. It's an excellent release. I can't wait to see what kind of improvements they do and what kind of other releases we get. They said they're making a bunch, so I'm guessing we're going to get the whole, the pack? Is that what they're called? Do they call themselves a pack? I think they do. Anyway, I can't wait to see what else we get, and I'm sure you guys are excited too. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down, and if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day, and thousands already on the channel, so make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.